Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusai, your show host, and I am so excited to be able to introduce my audience to Jessica Hammock. Tell us who you are, what you do, and we are going to launch in.
I am so excited to be here. Who I am, I think that's such a loaded question. I'll just say to start this off with a loaded question of who I am. But for the context of the audience, I am a mom, I am a wife, but what I do in the world, the work I do, I work for a charter school system as the director of behavioral and mental health and oversee a team of 7 therapists, and we have 100 campuses and 25,000 kids.
Wow.
So a lot going on there, but it kind of led me on this path. How I got there was actually becoming, I have a master's in counseling, so I'm a licensed trauma therapist.
Okay.
And a trauma recovery coach, so clinically trained in trauma recovery and healing, and national certified counselor, and there's a whole bunch of other acronyms and things. But basically, I pursued education first, and then I ended up in the field of counseling to really help support our kids, which led me more into the trauma field. And that began a journey actually of me more working with women. I will work with men and I will work with teens and kids, but mainly the primary audience has been so much with women tied to trauma and their identity and how they live, move, and breathe in relation to those two things.
Man. So does this mean that you have the alphabet behind your name?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. It's a little bit fun when you get the new certifications or the licensing and the credentials, and then after a while, people just stumble over to.
I know. Fred and I think I shared with you when we met that Fred and I would totally go back and get degrees just so we could add stuff behind our name. Even though I don't add the ones I could actually add behind my name. I kind of forget about it.
It's this desire to be a lifelong learner too.
Yes.
And so it's like, no, Jessica, stay in your lane. Don't go get more. Focus on what's in front of you.
That is so, I appreciate that. But the one thing that is important, I think, about you sharing that you are the director of mental health, 100 campuses, 25,000 students, is that, and you have 7 therapists that you lead. You're in this.
Yes.
As a teacher, an educator in the public school system back in Florida, that was obviously many, many years ago, but I recognize the need for it.
Yes.
And also that you're having opportunity to engage in a variety of situations.
Absolutely.
That gives you a great width and breadth of experience and opportunity to apply your knowledge.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing. You can go and get the certifications and the knowledge. It is about the wisdom and the application of it, and also how you help other people apply it. That's so good. So it sounds like you kind of morphed into it, but was there something that was the tipping point for getting your interest in mental health?
Well, I like to tell everybody I had this great story when I began life that I told God this was how this is going to go.
Oh, okay.
I was going to marry a preacher and I was going to stay home and have children, but I went to college to be a teacher because I knew that if something ever happened to my husband, I need to take care of the kids, and I knew that they would always need teachers. And so that began my journey. I always tell people, though, God laughed and said, that's real funny. You think that's how that's going to go. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But in all of that, I did become a teacher. And what I found was I really struggled in 5th grade with math, learning math. I had a lot of failures in that grade. And I ended up inadvertently being hired to teach 5th grade math and science.
Of course you were.
I got this, baby. And I'm like, I'm going to help other people, especially children in 5th grade who struggle with math, and this idea that math is hard, or I can't do math, or math is not for me. And it's just a matter of changing your mindset, changing how you approach it. So instead of saying I'm bad at math, I'm learning and growing every day in how to do math. And I became really good at doing it, so much so that they had me train other people in the district and all this stuff, right? And the problem, I still had problems, and there still wasn't success in math. And I really kind of took it back to what is the problem? I'm the best I can be in my field in this arena, and they're still not learning math. And what I found was this pattern of individuals who experienced now what I know is trauma, but at the time didn't have the language to apply to that, and understood that the emotional mental health and disruption that they had experienced in their lives as children was preventing them in their mind and their brain from moving forward to actually learn the math. Their nervous system wasn't regulated. They were living in fight or flight. And they're like, and I came to this realization, it doesn't matter how good I am at teaching math and rearranging and being relational, this is a barrier. And so that kind of was like, well, how do I solve this next problem? I decided to go back to school for counseling, which led me into some of the work of really practically how I help kids. And there was one specific student, and I had a session, multiple sessions with him to really work through some stuff. I have permission to share his story, but and he's gone on to be an amazing success, graduated high school, went to the military. Like it's his mom still keeps in contact with me today. It's such a beautiful storyline. But after that, working with him, I really saw the impact of that when you work through your trauma and what it's tied to. Your brain can think. You can process skills the way you need to. You can be in school without having disruptive behaviors. And I did a lot of work and went on to form the program that our school system didn't have. But beyond that, then it became, I really began seeing this. Okay, then I worked with teenagers in the same system. Then I worked with young adults because I'm like, if I can get them earlier and earlier, right?
What a difference it will make.
Right, if I can get them when they're starting life, even working through, because the difficulty with kids under 18 or living at home is some of what they're dealing with is still the home situation.
It's ongoing.
Yeah. And so it's like you can teach them skills and tools how to navigate that, but they're still in the environment. So I thought, okay, young women, I'll teach young women how to navigate these things. Some are ready, some are not. Most don't pay. So there is that whole thing. If I'm going to build and grow a business, what does this look like?
Right.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can talk to the moms and talk to the women who are a little bit further along in life and the women who are going through difficult things. And it is an evolution sort of also my own story. I have a husband with a traumatic brain injury who had that when we were married for 3 years and basically like forgot our emotional connection and we had a complete upset. I had a 10-year journey with infertility. So these big, massive traumas happened in my life that don't even talk about like the emotional trauma that I had up until that point. Right. And I'm like, there has to be a way to figure this out. And in the middle of sort of figuring all that out in my schooling, my body and everything in me shut down. And I'm like, what is this? Like we have to be destined for something better and greater in this life than living in this level of pain. Mm-hmm. And for me, and I know we'll talk about it more in a little bit, but the idea of faith is such a powerful thing in my life and had been sort of like a core foundational issue. And I'm like, there has to be a different answer. So what is the answer? And that really began me pursuing something called the spirit, soul, body connection, how our heart is connected to our soul, our mind, will, intellect, and emotions, and how that shows up in our body and sickness, disease, illness, and other things. And what trauma can do, which is an injury to our nervous system and how we navigate things, what trauma does to kind of disrupt that connection between those three. And as women, we're likely, there's a quote by C.S. Lewis, and I don't have it memorized, but it's basically says this idea that it's easier to treat a toothache than it is to treat mental pain, even though mental pain is more disruptive to our life.
Yeah.
And so in society and life, women will go to the doctor for physical disruptions because it slows them down faster.
Right.
But they will apply a lot of thoughts, mindsets, dismissiveness, whatever belief systems they have to push past or ignore mental pain. And it all goes back to there's heart woundedness that still needs resolved too.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. There is so much. You're probably going to want to listen to that again because there's so many pieces to that. So a couple things I just want to pull from that. As a teacher myself, and I taught chemistry, which has a lot of math.
Yes.
And so I still say to this day, chemistry is one of the hardest sciences a high schooler will take.
Yeah.
When you said that you were the best that you could be and they still weren't learning math.
Yeah.
Because you recognized that you can have all of those skills, but that pattern, that trauma, the emotional and mental health is what was hindering their ability to even grab hold of that which you were so good at.
Right.
To then implement. I think that is incredibly important because I think oftentimes and this could be, for example, parents with their children, or in this case, we're talking teachers with students. They get super frustrated thinking, I've told you what to do.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing it?
That's one of the things that I'm really passionate about in my role and in life is giving people more tools to do better what I could not earlier on, both parents and educators. And a lot of times what happens is our ego gets threatened because we have given them the tools and the framework we know how to give them. I've taught you this method. I've told you how to clean your room. I've set these expectations in the household, and there's a disruption in it. And it's an opportunity. And as a parent myself, I want to alleviate the pain and the struggle and the disruption. Right. And I'm like, I know best, right? And then my 4-year-old's like, no, I do it myself. And I'm like,
you mean I can't control you?
And one day I had a really intentional conversation with God, and I was like, look, like, why can't this be easier? And then I had this download realization, call it whatever you want, that this is her journey too. And part of her journey is working through these things. So my goal in this is to provide teachers, parents, whoever, the tools that they need to navigate those difficult things and not let me, if I'm the one using the tool, be disrupted in who I am and my identity.
Yes.
And I think that's what it always comes back to, this idea of identity. When teachers from that role, when things don't go well, they feel like, I'm being disrespected. You're not listening. You don't care. I need to do better. They make it about themselves.
Yes.
Instead of recognizing, like, what is the barrier here? And let's address the barrier. And more times than not, it's an emotional mental health barrier, but it has to do with what they're thinking and what they believe about themselves.
Yeah, so
Same is true about parenting. You're not obeying. You're not following my rules. You're acting out this thing. And parents are like, that's a disrespect of me.
Yeah, you're disrespecting me.
You're disrespecting me. Well, most kids in most situations aren't intentionally thinking, how can I disrespect my parents today?
Disrespect.
They're having trouble processing this emotional overwhelm with all the thoughts that come with it in the age and situation they're in. And sometimes the body chemistry that they're experiencing, depending on if they're a toddler or a teenager.
Yes.
I know.
That's so true.
I know. But parents want to do their best in most cases. And then they make it about, like, you're disrespecting me. And we lose there was a training I took, and this really helped kind of solidify this. It's called Capturing Kids' Hearts. But they'll say, if you're going to redirect for a behavior and the student gets disrespectful in the redirection, don't address the disrespect then. Okay, so parents, like, take a breath. You will survive this conversation. Because they said you're sending mixed signals about what was the most important. It's confusing to them. It doesn't mean you don't ever address the disrespect, but in that moment, you stay focused on, this was the behavior that I need you to correct. Later on, when things have de-escalated, whether they've corrected or you had to give a consequence or whatever, then you can reapproach them with, how do you think that you did that? Do you think it was in the best interest? Do you think it was respectful or not? What could you have changed?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times what happens is ego and pride get in the way, and we make it about who we are in the interaction.
So true.
Instead of the transition.
It's so true. I'm like, I needed to know you, like, when my kids were way younger. But I did know someone who is very dear to me. Her name is Teresa. And I remember, I'll just say one of our sons, when in early grade, they had the red, yellow, green behavioral system.
Yep.
And the number of times that he would come home on red.
Yes.
And I remember being on the phone with her. I remember, like, how our body remembers things, right? I'm at the sink. I'm bawling. Like, I was crying all the way home from the school. He's now playing. I'm at the sink on the phone with my friend Teresa, who's 20 years my senior. He's on red again. And she goes, I mean, I'm sure she was more loving than this, but she is known for truth speaking. She was like, so is it about the fact that he's on red, or about how people think of you as the parent that has a child on red?
Mic drop.
I know. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But the reality was, that's exactly what it was.
It is.
It's exactly the ego and the identity, because we can wrap our identity in I have well-behaved kids.
Yeah.
Or I have very successful kids.
Yeah.
Or I have kids who have gone through college and all the things. I mean, like it can be attached.
Yeah.
And then we're vicariously living through the achievements of our kids because it affirms our identity.
Which messes up their interpretation of identity also, because they are, and personality does play a role. I talk to teachers and parents a lot about that, because how one parent's personality communicates love and affection is not going to be always how a child receives it. And so I say it doesn't matter if you're a very organized, systematic, logical parent and you have a child who's wired for fun and teamwork and connection, your way of sort of organizing their success and the way you relate to them is like clean your room, or not that you shouldn't have standards, but clean your room, or, oh, you got a 92. Well, okay, so how can we fix this?
Get you to 100.
And get you to 100. And you know what the kid heard is, I will never be good enough. It does not matter how hard I study, how I do this, I will never measure up to them. And it's not that the parent didn't communicate love and affection and nurture.
Just not in a way that they could receive it.
It wasn't the same language. And I say it's kind of like trying to speak German to somebody who only speaks French. You are going to miss the connection. But what happens then in the brain is that stores as emotional neglect. And so then the child thinks, I'm emotionally neglected. My parents don't love me for who I am and how I need to be in the world. So some of you just heard something in that and you're like, this explains my whole life right now. Because it wasn't that and generationally, this is very true. If you are a baby boomer or a Gen Xer in those silent generation in those years, your parents came out of the depression, or maybe they're boomers, and the way they communicated love and affection was really focused on survival skills.
That's correct. So I go to work, I provide for the family. Yes. This is why you have a meal on the table.
And then what comes back is I wasn't beaten. I didn't have anything sexual happen to me. I had a roof over my head and I had clothes and food provided for me. But that still doesn't mean that you don't have some sort of trauma response in your body or brain, because you might not have had the emotional care and nurture you needed.
Ooh. That's a lot. It's a lot of good. Okay. I mean it in that way.
There is a lot of hope in that. Because here's the thing I tell people about trauma. When I really learned it, I think I was most encouraged, because trauma is not a disorder. Now they call it PTSD because they needed money to fund the research of it.
Okay.
So they put symptoms together. They said, this is PTSD. But when you study trauma out, it's an injury in a nervous system, and how it processes the information, how it works through it. But here's the really good news, is that injuries can heal.
Yes.
And I think that for me was what was the most fascinating part, is that all of the wounds that occur, whether parents intentionally meant to be like, I can't do what I need to do as a parent, or they're just in the mode of working, providing, caring, whatever, whether the emotion, the message was meant to be sent or not, which most of them aren't, that I don't have what it takes to care and nurture for you in the way you need it.
Right.
The wound can still heal. And I think that for me is why I continue to show up, because I am always looking for who is the treasure of you that just needs to heal from some bad messages that you got.
All right. So you've said something a couple of times, and I feel certain you'll be able to speak it in what I call palatable language for the average person who maybe they've not done a lot of study on the brain or the nervous system. You've talked about injury to the nervous system.
Yeah.
I want you to explain that to the best that you can in layman's terms.
So our nervous system stores language. It connects back to our brain, and we have something in our body called the vagus nerve. It comes from the brain stem, and it wires down through our body and connects to every major organ in our body. So when we come across something that our brain perceives as a threat, I like to say I have this little man in my head, and he's a little bit jittery, and I call him Detective Danger. And so the best way to explain it is I'm walking along, and all of a sudden this twig snaps, and my whole body freezes. And Detective Danger has hit the panic button because he said, stop, this is something that's really bad, right? And so he's up there Googling my brain's database to figure out what was the noise, what do I do next? Do I run? Do I freeze? Do I hide? Whatever. And I look down and I see this signal that is a stick lying on the sidewalk that I just stepped on. And he's like, oh, thank God it was just a stick. And so he turns the panic button off, which stops the flow of adrenaline in our nervous system. That adrenaline has gone to our arms and our legs to get away. And in that process, it actually slows down our digestive system and our reproductive system. And because we don't need to digest that great breakfast if we're running to stay alive, right?
Exactly. We need to basically, it's like pooling all resources to what keeps us safe.
Yeah. If that incident doesn't resolve itself within 20 minutes, the adrenaline switches to cortisol. And the cortisol then is the stress hormone, which makes it very difficult why people have experienced trauma and traumatic symptoms have digestive issues and reproductive issues because their body is functioning at a limited capacity. That being said, in that moment, we are navigating that. We have a lot of thoughts, feelings, and words attached to that event in our nervous system.
Yeah.
Injury comes when we're not able to release the thoughts, words, expectations that happened to the nervous system. So one incident, if I don't tell anybody about it, it stores as a marker on my nervous system that this happened. Trauma is not necessarily big events like we might think of car accidents or war or some violation of ourselves. It can be anything where we don't get to express the narrative story of our memory and the emotional experiential part in the same component. There's two different lines or pathways in the brain.
Say that one more time. Narrative.
Story of the memory and the emotional experiential memory. So this is why you have two different types of people that navigate trauma typically. You have somebody that's always talking about their trauma, always. Like you could tell their story. Or you have people that have violent emotional swings and they never talk about it.
Yeah.
So what happens is that nervous system is like, this is not fixed. I'm trying to get out. I'm trying to get stuck. And it markers itself on the nervous system, impacts the different organs in the body with different emotions are stored in them. And that is how it's injured. It can't process and release and read cues of safety. It can't release the story. And over time, the nervous system doesn't have the capacity to experience emotions like joy, peace, satiety, all of those creative things because it gets weighed down with the heaviness of it.
Wow.
So part of trauma work is actually having somebody release the narrative story that's attached to this memory or this incident in a safe way so that if emotions do come up and they're allowed to express them. Now, there's some trauma methods where you don't actually have to tell the story and we can let the brain do the work and accelerate the body's reconnection with it. But ultimately, when the story resolves with the emotional experience resolve, it's like zipping those brain pathways back together.
Wow.
And the nervous system can then release that marker hold that it has on it to say, okay, I'm good here.
Okay, see if this makes sense. I'm just thinking about the visual in my mind. The visual in my mind listening to you is that if I were to break my arm, I have a marker, right?
Yeah.
And with a broken bone in my arm, I have limited use of my arm, which means I'm hindered or I have a block in the things that physically I can do. Obviously, there's the pain of a break as well. But then when they reset the arm, thinking about these pathways that are coming back together and the bone begins to graft and grow back to the original or to the as close to the original form as possible, now I can regain use of my arm. Okay, is that landing from a physical standpoint?
Yeah, so what happens is your brain might have a remembrance of it, but it doesn't remember with pain and disruption. Yeah. People talk about triggers a lot. A trigger is that the marker in like with the bone is still off. You know how when people will say, oh, I broke my bone, so now I always know when it's going to rain.
Yes.
That is the body saying, I remember that there was an injury here. It's a remembrance of the injury. When trauma is healed, it doesn't remove markers, but it removes the effects that the markers have on the body and epigenetically on family lines.
Okay, tell me about that. Okay, so first of all, someone listening, they're going to go, I have no clue what epigenetics is. So define that for us.
My definition of it, so you can go find, the correct one or the dictionary one, but incidents or patterns in our nervous system, in our genes that get passed down from family line to family member to family member.
Okay.
Because the DNA can have those markers on it. It can switch the patterning. So the best way to say it is people will say, well, alcoholism's in my family.
Yes.
So,
and we hear that a lot.
So let's say a figure in the family, a father figure, has a really bad trauma, and his response to it is he starts drinking. And he drinks and he drinks and he drinks. And then he gets married and they have children. And his son or daughter may not have a propensity just to go get alcohol. But then when they take the first sip of alcohol, their genes are wired to activate the same response in them that the dad had. All the trauma is passed along. So it's much more of a connected to addictive factor because it's that gene pathway has rewired itself. The good news is that it can stop. For somebody who stops, that gene pattern can be rewired. For those that are in the faith space, it talks about this in the Bible. It talks about
does. Go ahead, say it.
Curses that are to the third and fourth generation, but blessings are 1,000 generations. So there's always this opportunity to redirect and heal. And listen, the curse pathway is a lot shorter than the blessing one.
Praise the Lord.
So I look at this as if you have the situations that you turn to a substance or a factor to navigate, heal, or block your trauma, because this is the way you believe you have to be to cope or survive, those patterns can be undone and can be healed, and those symptoms go away.
And that is such an opportunity for hope.
Yeah.
Right. And which I think it's so important. One thing that I am very grateful for in our modern day time is that we are hearing people talk about mental health a lot more.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was, I don't even want to say the things that were once said.
Yeah. The stigmatizing things. We already know. That's
correct. And, and so then people suppress because I don't want to be lumped into that.
Right.
And so I think it's just so important. And I'm loving the clarity of how you walked us through that as well. So for the person listening, I'm definitely going to have you back on the show because, like I said, for those of you watching, listening, I was like, I perceive that we could go a long time, but for the sake of the hearer or watcher, I want to be mindful of our time. What do you hear most often as far as the limiting beliefs that keep people from doing the work necessary to heal their nervous system?
I think one of the things that people say is I'm not enough, or what often it's a deservedness issue. They perceive that they have to deserve healing, and that this thing that they're feeling, believing, experiencing is not as important as physical health. So they have no problem, like I said,
going for a physical issue.
Yeah, like going to the doctor because they have cancer, but their body is being eaten away because of the emotional disruption. And they're like, I just have to.
Can I pause you for a moment for that? Because one of my previous guests, she serves women coming out of domestic violence. And so this deservedness piece, is it possible that some of it's, I deserve the pain of it, as well as I don't deserve the healing from it?
Yeah. I mean, it comes back to, like, I think some core identity and how we had to survive childhood, or how we navigated childhood. Inherently, I believe that we're priceless human beings. Nobody can bestow worth on us. We have worth because
we were created with worth.
Yes. And we bring value to the world in how we show up as ourselves. But the biggest lie that people believe is I'm not worth it. And because they believe they're not worth it, they believe they should have pain and suffering and disruption. Yes. And then oftentimes I see a huge shift, especially in women, these generational breakers. I'm going to break these generational curses, break this generational trauma. And they're like, all hands up. And the whole world runs against them to stop this thing, right? And then it's heavy. There's a lot to it. And it is it is a mindset shift to say, no, we were all worth it. We were all worthy of not going through this. We do live in a fallen world, but we have tools. So let me connect to the best tools so that I can actually confront this lie that I am worth doing this work. Mm-hmm. I am worth walking in healing. And there's evidence of that all throughout Scripture, laws, whatever you want to look at, whatever source you look at is evidence of that.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And I'm grateful that you talked about it being a deservedness issue, because I feel that because there's been so much of the tools that have been separated from Scripture, from what I'm going to call unchanging truth sources. Yeah. So I consider the Bible an unchanging truth source. Yeah. I don't mind saying it. Anybody who's listened to my podcast for any period of time knows I'm a faith-based person.
Yes.
So I believe the Bible is an unchanging truth source, but we have divorced what is true and even what is fact from this truth source. So then as a result, we'll hear things like, well, you just need to say, I am enough. But just saying I am enough, divorced from the truth of what makes you enough.
Exactly, yeah.
Creates its own host of problems.
Right.
Because then it's all about, that the self-esteem movement of I just need to speak better to myself, about myself. But what am I speaking, and what is the truth source of what am I?
When you think about it, it starts with the belief system. What am I believing? Those thoughts and feelings then those thoughts and feelings come up, and we get the choice to decide, are those in alignment with what I'm believing? Is what I'm believing a truth? Oftentimes thoughts and feelings come up to re-anchor into the belief, which sends us into action. And then our brain's like, see, I told you weren't enough.
Exactly.
We will always find what we're looking for. And so
that's the thing with the subconscious, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't discern truth or lie.
Right.
It's one of the things that I'm so passionate about, trying to get people to recognize that what you say, your subconscious will agree.
Yeah.
So we need the truth source. Yeah. And that's something I was saying, last night, and is that the reality is I'm not enough apart from God.
Right.
I'm not enough apart from the Bible that helps to ground me and strengthen me. And
in biblical language, a lot of times I'll say we have believed the lie that we are an orphan, because when we are a son or daughter, we act differently. When it comes to our provision, our protection, and our purpose in life, when you think about a son or daughter in a healthy relationship with parents, they don't worry about whether or not food is going to be on the table, because they know their parents are going to handle that. They don't worry about whether mom and dad are going to protect them and take care of them,
because
they don't worry about what their purpose is, who they are. They know they're Husai, or they're Hammock, or they're whatever, right? They know who their identity is, and they walk out that. A son or a daughter of a king doesn't question their identity. They just walk it out. But somebody who has experienced being an orphan and doesn't have that to return to, they're always in question. Do I deserve this meal? Do I deserve to be taken care of? Do I deserve to be safe? Do I even have a purpose? How do I walk this out? It's always questioning. And the enemy will lie to littles, babies, infants, toddlers, putting those thoughts in there, disrupting them. See, this was your fault. And kids are very concrete thinkers, black and white, up until 10 or 11. So they don't have the ability to discern. So they've already decided, and then they see evidence of it. Yep, this was my fault.
They just prove it over and over
I don't
and
deserve
over
this.
again.
This is,
It's why it is so valuable for parents to continue to learn and grow how they can better understand this area of trauma and injury to the nervous system, because our life and death are in the power of the tongue. Yes.
And they that love it eat its fruit.
And that could be to the third and fourth generation.
Yes.
But I am appreciating what you said, that it can be disrupted. It can be stopped. Thus, for me, the whole focus on this thinking that matters piece. So we have interwoven it, but for the sake of just you declaring it, how would you articulate the role faith has played for you in your journey, both personally and professionally?
Well, I grew up in a Christian home. I went to Bible college, learned all the things and from all the people, and then felt like I still have disruption in believing this is true for me. And it became a really intense time. I was afraid of having a relationship with God. I was afraid of what he was going to say. And that went back to some of the father stuff that I had to work through. And so for me, I feel so passionate about really helping everybody understand that the identity of who you were created in the image of is worth because it is, and that you are a unique treasure in what you do. And so I like to say I'm a treasure hunter.
I love that.
I really am here to look at the treasure of who you are. And no matter what, the scripture talks about beauty in the ashes and having a crown of glory. And I think that we all have that. We just forgot because we became so focused on the ashes. But the reality is we were a treasure long before we experienced any ashes in our story. And so I get the privilege and opportunity to shine the mirror back to people and say, how are you reflecting God's glory? And is it the uniqueness and the treasure of who you are? And sometimes they're not ready to use God language.
Right.
And I fully understand that. So I'm there to say, like, even if you're mad at God, he can handle it. But let's work through it. Let's move out of the ashes of everything, because those aren't from a truthful place.
I love that. So someone listening may be going, man, how do I maybe learn more about the services that you provide? Tell them where they would go to.
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Jessica Vibrant Hammock. Both have accounts there. They can find me on my website, www.vibrantvoice.life. But yeah, those are the best ways.
And those will all be in the show notes as well, so they'll be able to find that. I ask every guest, because thinking is so important. Why do you believe, Jessica Hammock, it is important to cultivate thinking that matters?
Thinking that matters, I have the perspective that it's a seed. And when we have thoughts, it's continuing to plant seeds. And while the soil matters, the environment matters, all that stuff, the seeds that we plant will produce fruit. And do we want rotten fruit, or do we want good fruit? Do we want enjoyable, healthy fruit? Do we want healthy trees that produce what it is that we're looking for? So our thinking does matter, because we're constantly planting seeds that will produce an outcome. And if we don't pay attention, we're going to plant some bad seeds.
And I would add, just based on the whole of our conversation, that our thinking is planting seeds in our own mind.
Yes.
And the longer we allow those, as those seeds begin to grow, we end up planting seeds of thinking into the minds of others.
Yeah.
And those very seeds also will bear fruit.
Yes.
Good.
The brain shows evidence of it. You plant a seed, you think a thought, it grows little thought trees in our mind.
That's right.
And they talk about 21 days to form a new habit. No, it's 21 days to start a new tree. And then, but you keep planting those seeds, those trees grow. And the next thing you know, you have an orchard of thoughts rooted in truth that your nervous system can heal from, your relationships, your identity heals from. And that fruit is not just produced in your mind, but is evidence in your life and all the results that you have and how you live life out. And it's so powerful.
Oh, my word. I cannot wait to have you back.
Even in painful circumstances, we can still plant healthy seeds.
Yes, I love that. That is a great place to end, because what we've been able to hear from Jessica today is that you can cultivate thinking that matters. Yes. Plant the right seeds, grow a great orchard. I love that.